morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, let's start off your morning the right way. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayode Okikile, coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. It's just what it is. I'm stating the facts, you know.
Is not here.
You have to situate things, you know. I mean, it's journalism. You have to say the where. The where is Lagos.
Okay.
You know, where all of the action happens.
Well, no one is quarreling with you.
Looks like I'm fighting this morning. I mean, I'm just trying to get you pumped, you know. It's Thursday, right? And there's so much to achieve today. So let's kickstart this morning with a look at the dailies. And to do that with us, we're joined on the program by Mr. Sylvester Odagie, who is a publisher, National Daily. It's great to have you on the program this morning.
Always a pleasure, and good morning to
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, what a day, what a week, I should say. Well, let's start off with the front page of, let me see, The Guardian. The Guardian newspaper is where we start off this morning. And this is what you find on the front page of The Guardian. Of course, it concerns insecurity. And there you go. Sack NSA Defense Minister. Reps charges Buhari. I say Reps charge Buhari. Anyway, the writers there. Reps threatens to shut down legislative business, declares Nigeria a failed state. 2,968 killed, 1,484 abducted in 3 months. Presidency replies Northern Elders, says reform on security sector coming soon. There's another angle from the federal government saying bandits Boko Haram have joined forces in unholy handshake. That's what the Minister of Information said. And the IGP also has a thing or two to add to this, saying our effort not good enough. McCarthy, Sheikh Husani, others seek timely release of trained abductees. So it looks like these issues are rolling into each other. We're still grappling with that Kaduna Abuja train attack. Then we've had attacks in Benue, in Plateau, and other parts of the country. As a citizen, let me ask you as an editor, which, of course, you double as a citizen and an interested party. How do you soak in all of this? How do you cope? Let me start from there.
It is difficult to accept that in Nigeria of today, that particularly when we thought we were going to have the best, and I must be frontal, in the build-up to the 2015 elections, we can't divorce those realities from what we see today. The credentials of the president were read out to the extent that a retired general who had seen it all. I remember the national leader of the APC, that famous video of his statement at one of the rallies, went viral again recently, but he made mention of how nations who were in crisis called on their retired generals to lead those nations. And at the time that we were calling on the retired Major General Muhammadu Buhari to lead Nigeria, they were calling, not we, because not many of us agreed. 7 years down the line, and to see that we have gone from bad to worse, it's appalling. It's unacceptable. And then when you just oppose it with the several hundreds of billions of naira, trillions, I must say, that have been spent on security, and looking at what we have, we definitely we are not pleased. And to call for the sack of A and B, I do not know if the sack of these individuals is what we really need. I think something is still missing, and that is the political will on the part of the president and the leadership of the country to do the needful. Whether you like it or not, the buck stops at his table, and he has to take responsibility.
What is the needful in this case? What is the needful? I mean, that's the term I hear a lot. What's the needful? Is it as though we don't know the needful? Or what exactly is the needful?
We have seen footages of these bandits, terrorists, having a fit day. We have seen people were kidnapped within minutes of the kidnap. Why were the victims not rescued? What happened to our area surveillance? What happened to the infrastructure, security architecture we had in place? Did it fail? Who didn't do what he or she was supposed to do? How many heads have rolled? And these are the questions we continue to ask. And if these things are not done, these are the needful. It took, whether it is correct or not, some information being made available, suspected places where the victims are being held are said to be about 128 kilometers from the scene of the abduction, as it were. And it would have taken at least a couple of hours, several hours, to walk that distance. And so while that was happening, what happened to our security? What happened? And contacts, Shehu Sani went on Twitter. The families of victims are being contacted. Ransoms are being negotiated. Yet we can't track these individuals. It is unacceptable, and we must call it what it is.
I remember that the families of the victims on Monday gave the federal government a 72-hour ultimatum, and that should have elapsed already, and we wait to see. Well, the government has been speaking about that, and you see some insights from the Minister of Information saying it's now bandits partnering with Boko Haram. Some said we knew that already. The question now will be what is being done, but he said that things are being done. We're yet to see the fruition just yet. There's politics, interestingly. Politics is still on right now on the front page. Build up to the elections, INEC uncovers 1.3 million invalid registrations to prosecute culpable officials, as well as a couple of other stories. By the way, let me just mention NASU-SANU threatened indefinite strike over non-implementation of agreement. So they had this 2-week warning strike. Now they're threatening. ASU is on strike. We know that already. SANU started warning strike. Now they're threatening an indefinite strike, and you wonder just how bad it can get. That's the Guardian newspaper.
I'll add also to the fact that NLC is also saying they're going to join forces.
Oh, goodness.
Anything better doesn't happen. The leadership newspaper has this. By the way, on that, I wonder how he asked a question around that of editors the other time. How do editors cope with all these? You'd have thought that reporting these issues would help to resolve the issues. At least that's the expectation. Put it in public domain so that action can be taken by those who are supposed to do it. So he asked the question of how do editors cope with this thing, having to cast almost the headlines, the same headlines almost on a daily basis.
It is frustrating, and sometimes you can almost predict what the next headline would be, and across platforms. And that is why we continue to demand. Yes, a lot is being done, but you see, your best is not good enough until it produces the desired outcome. So many will tell us we're doing a lot, we're trying, but until it produces for us the desired outcome, which is the safety and security of lives and property of people in our society, you haven't done enough. Okay. And you continue to look for new solutions. You continue to engage and work around the clock and make sure that we get the best as we speak. It's been said recently, the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God had to come out and speak. Everybody is talking. So, and it gets to us as editors. You're casting these headlines, 10 dead, 50 dead. Just a few days ago, I was just thinking, these are human beings. These are members of family. These are people's brothers, sisters, husbands, wives. Families are, we are looking at numbers, but we are actually looking at pains, discomfort, tears, sorrow, blood in homes because of these things that have happened. And we can't gloss over them. We must continue to raise the issues, ask relevant questions, and I tell you, it's really frustrating when you see that these headlines are almost becoming, the same story again and again.
Well, it will seem like the same probably was felt by the editor of the Guardian newspaper and the leadership newspaper this morning, Look at the front page of the leadership newspaper. 24 hours after Northern Elders' resignation call to PMB, FG vows to unveil perpetrators of Kaduna Plateau attacks. Stories on page 4. Says we are working to free abductees. Call for president's resignation, not solution to insecurity, according to presidency. Reps lament protracted terrorist attacks. Ask president to implement security summit report. Insurers may cough out 119 million naira compensation for train attack victims. All of that is packed on the front page, and you see some graphics there of the recent killings that the FG also vowed to unveil. Quite a number there. And as our guest here said, they are not just numbers, they are people. Right under the nameplate, insurers discover 20 billion naira fraudulent claims from NSAR's destruction. One would have thought that, I mean, everything about this one should be okay. I mean, what do you make of this?
You know, people will always hide behind misfortunes to profit. The moment government began to call on people to come up with claims, on one hand, it was government's attempt to further demonize, criminalize, as it were, the actions of those who took to the streets, who probably took laws into their hands. But beyond that was a monster that was also being bred, as it were. And that is what you have seen in these fraudulent claims. These are the ones that have come to the open. There are many more, particularly in government circles, that you may never hear about. So people will always profit from things like this, and that also goes to show the extent to which corruption has eaten into the very fabrics of our society. We should not be. But thank God it's been exposed, and we do hope that those who have perpetrated this should not go free. Always, that is the landing spot for me. Okay. It doesn't matter what crime an individual attempts to commit, but the law must always be the law. Yes. If we ensure that these individuals pay dearly for their actions, that will serve as deterrent over time to others, because that is how you build a society.
Okay. Well, this one is, of course, as would it be expected. Politics is on the front page as well. A strip right above the major headline. 2023 PDP closes entry today. 17 presidential aspirants pick forms. Well, may I also add, at 40 million naira each. Well, this one, we talked about the education sector the other time. NLC gives 21 days. NLC gives FG 21 days to resolve crisis in education sector. That story is on page 6. Do you see any hopes in that?
For the first time, at least, we are seeing the NLC coming out to do what it's supposed to do, and we also expect people like the National Assembly, the lawmakers, to join everybody, because these kids being at home is not in anybody's interest. And we can't, how people go to bed every day, carry on with activities as though nothing is wrong when our young people are at home. It is unacceptable. So if the NRC can make real its threat, and I hope they are serious and they are not just trying to get attention of the government of the day. Sometimes these organized labor, they have disappointed at different times when they make such threats, and then when they are invited and then things happen and other things follow, and then they come out and, in the interest of what right. interest could be more than the interest of the future of the nation. And that is why today we are paying the price for the mistakes of yesterday. And then we are continuing with the same mistakes today. That means even in the near future, these problems are not going to go away, because the quality of education we give to our children determine how prepared they are for leadership responsibility.
Goodness. Well, let's turn our attention to daily trust. Well, Sokoto is still counting losses from that boat mishap. And you see how bright to be. 28 others die in Sokoto boat mishap. That's the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Village head loses 5 children, niece, 2 in-laws. Accident second in 10 months. That's according to LG Chair. Victims given mass burial. And, you know, some of the things the people talked about is having better boats, you know, better safety measures put in place. They talked about better infrastructure. It's really sad. And I was really hoping to bring up at least some silver lining this morning. It seems we've been talking sad stories, but clearly we don't have that. There's also this one, which might interest you. APC presidential ticket. Buhari's body language unsettles Osinbajo, Tinubu, Amechi, others. You see, president in a tight corner, in quotes, who said that. Party set to release timetable for primaries. And, you know, we've heard about the president's body language. I mean, when he was coming into office, there was this talk about his body language and all that. But this is coming when he's about to leave office. And do you see anything about the president's body language in a build-up to the election, especially in terms of who is probably supporting?
Well, that is not yet clear, and I think he has left it deliberately so, because ideally he shouldn't be seen to be throwing his weight behind any candidate, because he has said he would allow a level playing field. He's a repentant, he's now a Democrat, and I think if it is indeed a democracy, the power indeed should be with the people, and the people should be given the opportunity. In this case, members of the party should be given the opportunity to decide who their flag bearer should be, and ultimately Nigerians should have the opportunity to pick who would be their president, and not one man sitting. And I think that is what has really negatively impacted our politics over time, where an individual arrogates to himself the powers of being an all-knowing that can see the future of the state and can decide this is the person. I think it should be a collective decision.
Let me put this tricky one to you. Do you think it's fair to talk about, you know, this politicking build up to 2023 when we have this insecurity challenge on our hands? There's been a lot of debate around it. Is it fair?
We cannot divorce the politics from the reality, because whether you like it or not, the elections would hold. The elections will not be postponed.
But there has to be security.
There has to be security, no doubt. So the onus is on the government of the day to ensure that there is a balance and that they give attention to issues that border on insecurity. And they shouldn't be seen to be politicking more than the attention they should give to security. And I think that is what is getting people's attention, particularly when the Minister of Transportation would have what many have described as the insensitivity, as it were. They display an insensitivity, you know, to go under the guise of a Thanksgiving to declare his ambition to run as president. With all that we have seen in the last 2 weeks, I think that is most insensitive. And
pretty much nobody should declare at this rate.
I think they should have respected the dead. They should have been more sensitive to the feeling, I mean, of citizens who are right now, they can't sleep with 2 eyes closed, not even with 1 eye closed now.
With the election timetable still counting? I don't know. Well, let's leave that for now. I'm looking for a paper that's not talking about insecurity. Okay, the New Telegraph this morning leads with something completely different.
Shocking, I must say.
And scary. Airlines begin ticket sale in dollars, April 19. Blame $283 million trapped funds in forex scarcity. Airfares on international routes skyrocket. First of all, what do you make of this? Well, this is supposed to be Nigeria, right? In country. So airlines begin ticket sale in dollars April 19, or is it only for those going out of the country?
Well, I don't have the facts of that development, but if you know, you need to appreciate the fact that what the airlines are facing right now is a threat to their survival. And if they do not come up with strategies, models that can guarantee their survival, they will go practically extinct. So I think the onus again is on those who are responsible for managing the economy to sit down with these. Now we are not talking about jet fuel, we're talking about the general operations of the aviation industry. I think CBN needs to get involved. They need to sit down with the airline operators and address these issues frontally and ensure that whatever constraints, because ultimately it falls back to citizens. And I dare say that when these pressures begin to mount, there could be something that many are not prepared for right now. And I think we should not be insensitive. We shouldn't just leave the airline operators to decide what they want to do. The government must take the bull by the horn and make sure these matters are addressed.
Quick one on the front page of the New Telegraph. Primaries with notification from only 10 parties that subscribe to INEC and Sanu Nasu to begin indefinite strike. Well, politics is still in the air. That's the New Telegraph newspaper this morning.
We'll take a look at Vanguard with this one. Outrage as Sultan Khan MBF reps lament killings and a host of riders. It just tries to put that in perspective. This one, NLC gives FG 21 days to resolve issues with varsity unions. We mentioned that earlier. So if NLC goes on strike, then what more can we say? Insecurity, 31 killed in Southeast in 72 hours. That's on page 11, and there's a breakdown of that one. So it means just not just the Northwest, or is it the Northeast? You have in the Southeast as well. We definitely need a holistic solution to this one. And there's an update on the death of gospel singer Osinachi. Nwachukwu denies responsibility for wife's death. Mother says husband made life unbearable for her. That's a developing story, very sad one. On page 7, there's sports on the back page. Raw eyes another Eagles job.
Which one?
I mean, it's not bad, right? Give him another chance, especially now a lot of people are thinking, oh, maybe we should have allowed him stay, right? Because he's gotten us qualification for the World Cup before. Just maybe we were too hasty. So it would be fair, right, to give him another chance, if indeed he's looking for one.
I think Nigeria should look beyond Raw.
We should move on.
We should move
from the
on
relationship.
and really think about the future of our football. Just to think that the same Nigeria that shook the world of football, the build-up to USA, I mean, from Tunisia '94 up to 94 World Cup, 96 Olympics, 98 World Cup. We made extraordinary showings here, but after that we began to experience a decline, and we haven't recovered ever since. I think we need to, I mean, the managers of our football need to sit down and look fundamentally at the issues that we must deal with.
Of course, there's that story, I must say. Oil firms spill 1,545 barrels of crude oil in Q1 22. We need a whole day to discuss that. But I guess that's what we have to anchor today on our Papers Review. But we'll have to thank you so much, Mr. Sylvester Bodage, a publisher at National Daily. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
Always a pleasure. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll go on a break now, and when we return, this is the appetizer, okay? So grab your cup of coffee, juice, whatever it is that makes you tick, and let's get into the issues for the day. We're starting off with security. Stay with us.
It's the season of politics in Nigeria as the 2023 general election looms, and so politicians are jostling for various elective positions. However, as political activities hold sway, a frightening situation continues behind the scenes unabated: the killing of Nigerians by terrorists. Nigerians in Kaduna, Niger, Zamfara, as well as Benue, Katsina and Plateau states are under constant threat of being attacked and killed by terrorists.
When 170 Nigerians die in a day,
A frustrated Senator George Sekibo cannot hide his dismay at the deaths of Nigerians in the hands of marauding terrorists.
when 170 Nigerians die in a day, 25 die maybe another day, and we are seeing it as we are rubbing it off that it's just a person. It's a controversial experience. Nigerians are dying, and we are here to protect them. Every day we come here, we hear about dead. Get off for 1 minute silence, get off for 1 minute silence. It is enough. I think it is enough. Either we get a solution to it, or we don't take this person out again. But we are embarrassing the Senate and the nation.
Senator Sekibo's outburst is in response to a motion on the killings of several people in Plateau and Benue states days ago.
I do not think there is anybody that can justify.
The House of Representatives also debates the security situation in the country following two motions of urgent national importance on the attacks in Benue and Plateau states.
Who is responsible for the safety, for the security of lives and properties of the people of this country? Of course, without any fear of political misrepresentation, it is Mr. President. In my own local community that I'm mentioning, we had a soldier who was supposed to be in Zamfara, having given pass for consecutively 6 months, who was arrested, giving uniforms to the bandits.
The chairman of the House Committee on Police Affairs questions why President Buhari has refused to let go of the Minister of Defense and National Security Advisor. The minority leader recommends that President Buhari takes drastic steps to confront the security crisis in the country.
If the president means well to this country, and if we are really trying to look for a solution, he has to immediately sack the National Security Advisor. 2, he has to remove his Minister of Defense.
Federal government should, as a matter of urgency, evoke the provision of Section 83, subsection 1, as it relates to contingency fund, to enable the government employ the mercenaries to quell this insurgency that is ravaging our country.
Federal lawmakers also recalled the security summit it held in 2021 and questioned the federal government's failure to implement the recommendations of that summit. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Let's get down to discussing this issue again. The Plateau attacks, definitely something very troubling. Danyabu Garga joins us this morning. He is chairman, Kanam Local Government Area of Plateau State. He is also former commissioner for local government and chieftaincy affairs in Plateau State. He joins us via Zoom from Kanam, Plateau State, as well as Dan Manyang, who is the Commissioner for Information and Communication in Plateau State. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Garga. Perhaps you want to start by giving us an understanding of exactly what happened and what is the current state of affairs.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. What really happened was we woke up Sunday, 10th April 2022, to be attacked by unknown government numbering over 100 because they came in a convoy of about 70 motorbikes, and on each bike, you have 3 armed men to the teeth. And they enter our villages shooting sporadically on the fleeing residents. And they pursue with their motorbike, shoot you, pursue the next person, shoot that person, and set their houses ablaze for just no cause. We don't know what we've done to them. We've never had this experience before. We've never had of it close to our domain. Unfortunately, it has affected us, and our people are still not finding the reason why such a thing happened to them. But as of now, we thank the state government for mobilizing security men, and the situation is now calm. But the calmness, you see, people are distressed. People are not happy. People are not saying, why should this thing befall them? When they are merely farmers, farming to survive, sustain the farmers, not businessmen, not government workers, like it has happened. So we thank and I pray the state government, plus the federal government, to also come to us so that such a thing will not come close to our people. That's our opinion.
Well, let me ask Mr. Manyang. You know, the natural question anyone would ask is, I mean, did we see this coming? There's always that talk about intelligence gathering, government knowing that these things are going to happen before they happen, and consequently getting ahead of it so it doesn't get as bad at it as it has become. Is this something, some kind of information that government had before it happened, or was there no intelligence at all about it?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity that I've been given to explain some of the things that I know. I would tell you that we have youths that are scattered all across the state. But for this issue that has happened, this attack, I would say that we didn't see it coming. I'm happy that the chairman of the local government is there with you. He is the chief security officer of the local government in court. I've always said it, the chief security officer of any state, of any local government who does not have the capacity to command troops is just on his own. And it has to do with our constitution, amending the constitution. I wouldn't have thought that we saw this coming. Otherwise, the number of lives and property that were destroyed would not have been at that dimension. But it calls for all hands to be on deck, both traditional institutions, both community leaders, and whoever that has to do with security to sit up really, because if what the chairman has said is the true position, then it means that we have a serious problem in our hands. That is the best that I can say. For now, we adjust, the Operation Rainbow in Jos gathers intelligence, but I have not been able to speak to the coordinator of Operation Rainbow in that direction. But as far as we are concerned in Plateau State, we didn't see this coming. And so this needs a lot to be done. Kanam local government, I hope I'm right, has borders Bauchi, Taraba, and about 3 states or more. And during the COVID area, we were able to isolate about 13 or thereabout porous borders, which need to be manned. The chairman can corroborate or debunk what I'm saying. What that means then is that there's more that meets the eye that has to be done in the area of security and border patrol in that direction.
All right. It would seem, Commissioner, that you also admit to, having indications. Because if you say during COVID-19 there were issues with border control and you had actually marked out those areas for there to be tighter border controls, and that could serve as some sort of indication, especially seeing that Kanam shares borders with states, not just Bauchi, but yet another state in the country. But now that this attack has happened, Mr. Garga was talking about how these attackers numbered up to 100. Now, picturing that, you know how much 100 people are. But this is the 4th day after that attack. Can you tell us what has been found out so far? Because, I mean, the governor has spoken. There are indications that it might be terrorists. Is that the direction now? Were they terrorists? Were they, I don't know, just ragtags? Who exactly is responsible for this?
Well, I wouldn't know who is exactly responsible, and I wouldn't want to stereotype, but you can see from the dimension of the destruction of property, from the dimension of the loss of lives, you know that if there's any word to be used on the attackers, that is more than terrorists, we use that. And because these are not just ragtag criminals that come and then take what loot or bandit or people that come to kidnap. These are people, highly skilled people that have come to kill and to render the people homeless and to even possibly occupy their land. And so it's a very serious affair. It's not something that will be treated with kid gloves in any way. And so it calls for all hands to be on deck. And we have said it times without number as a state that this is a constitutional matter. The constitution members of the National Assembly, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, have to rise up to this challenge to make sure that the constitution is amended so that people that are saddled with the responsibility of securing the state, you cannot call somebody the chief security of the state or the chief security officer of the local government, and he cannot command troops. And from all indication for what is happening, not only in Plateau State, but in the country, it would seem that there's a dearth or there's a shortage of security personnel. There's every need for the federal government to look into this with the hope of employing more people, recruiting more people, so that we would reduce to the barest minimum this kind of senselessness, this kind of man's inhumanity to man,
Mr. Manyang,
and this kind of
just a quick one. You said something now that, you know, the reason why some state governments are not able to do the needful is because they do not command the troops and the security apparatus and all of that. Are you by any chance saying that your government is handicapped and incapable to deal with these issues because of the constitutional impediment?
No, not handicapped, because if you look at immediately after the matter was made known to His Excellency, he moved into make sure that he takes necessary measures by talking to the relevant authorities and also ordering the GOC, ordering the security apparatus in the state to occupy, and they did that. If it were not because of the steps that were taken by His Excellency, the situation would have escalated beyond what we are seeing today. And so the state was not handicapped in terms of deployment, but we had to move proactively and to go further to deal with the humanitarian situation, because His Excellency gave marching orders to the State Emergency Management Agency and appealed to also the Ministry of Humanitarian Development and Humanitarian Affairs to step in. And I'm sure the chairman of the local government will talk to us about what the state has been able to do so far, what the local government has been able to do in that direction. The state does what it can within the powers that are available to it. But if more powers are given to His Excellency, to the governors, they would have done beyond what we could do. What we did as a state was the best that we could do in this circumstance.
You mentioned something the other time about intelligence when we asked about whether or not government had this intelligence. The understanding we've had over the years is that governors receive security reports on a daily basis at the very least. as frequently as possible. So that's why one is wondering how such a thing of such magnitude would happen, and the government wasn't aware at all that such a thing was even going to happen. Well, my colleague did point out something that you said earlier, that you foresaw, government foresaw that, okay, we had some dark spots, so to speak, and consequently there are thoughts in that direction. So that's why we're asking, is it a failure of intelligence or some proactive action that could have forestalled this weren't done for one reason or the other?
Yeah, well, what I said exactly was that during COVID, we were able to isolate about 13 or thereabout porous borders. And the onus rests upon everyone to make sure that these borders were secured. And as I tell you that we as a state have employed youths
Commissioner,
to
just a second.
deploy them to local governments.
Just 1 second, Honorable Commissioner.
The Operation Rainbow has an intelligence gathering machinery.
Just 1 second. When you say everyone, the onus is on everyone, who are these everyone? Is it the people in the communities?
The people in the communities, the community leaders, the government officials, both at local government, at ward, at state level, because security is a matter of everybody. And I would tell you with all sincerity that the hunters that you see in these villages, the vigilante that you see in these villages have played their part, have secured the villages more than you can think of, more than you can imagine. They need to be strengthened, and we in Plateau State are talking about community policing. Some are talking about state police, but we are talking about community policing so that we can embrace, we bring these different organizations together. That is what I mean when I say that the security is a matter of everybody.
Okay, let's take this to Mr. Garga now. I imagine what the people of your local government and even WASE have to go through now in the aftermath of that attack. But help us understand further, because there's still a lot of unclear areas. So you said 100 people stormed, and this attack happened across 10 villages, actually. So stormed these villages. I imagine that you've heard accounts of survivors, accounts of people who witnessed that. What did these people want? I know that there had been reports that well, people had seen this coming. They'd seen these criminals or terrorists hibernating in some forest reserves. Some residents had said that. So really, what did they tell you? What did these attackers want? Is it a fight for land? Is it a fight for ransom? Are they trying to maybe get ransom of people that were kidnapped as well? What exactly do you hear as a motive for this attack?
Well, first and foremost, they started as kidnappers. They'll kidnap one to collect ransom, release. A week or two, they'll bounce again, kidnap one or two, collect their ransom, and go away. About a month or so ago, they attacked a village market in Wasi local government in Plateau, where they killed so many people in the open day market in Plateau. And this thing continues because we have a large forest, very big forest. So they are hiding under the cover of this forest to perpetrate crimes. They kidnap people from Wasi, rush to Kanam forest, collect ransom, release. They will kidnap from Wasi, come to Kanam, or kidnap from Kanam, go to Wasi, and go to Taraba sometimes. Places like Kambari, Bangalala, and some other adjoining villages, they have their settlements there. And I'm sure the security are aware, they should know. Or we should investigate for that to know where did they come from? Why are they settling there? So the kidnapping did not do well for them. Now they are coming to attack and kill people. We know this thing started since when NNPC discovered hydrocarbons deposits in that forest. NNPC worked there for about 6 months. Work stopped. I think whether they are thinking this oil, when it is ready, they should be able to capture that area and have the oil. No one knows because they don't speak to anybody. Nobody ever talk to them and say, this is what we want. And we are asking, what do they really want? Why must they kill these people? What for? The villagers are only farm yearly to feed themselves. You go and storm and kill them. I mean, there are so many questions without answers. So I think unless government, particularly the trade state, Bauchi, Plateau, Taraba. Join Plateau and clear that forest. Get to know who are inhibiting in the forest and let them live wherever they are coming from. Since ever when they were dispersed in Zamfara, I want to believe after they are dispersed in Zamfara, that's why they now come to find a hidden place in this forest. And the forest is so thick, very large. Local government have been given that land for this ranching policy. And unfortunately, the ranching program have not started and they are coming to occupy this forest. And unless they are clear, that place I foresee it becoming the second Sambisa in Nigeria. So let us be proactive so that our people will be protected.
I mean, that's a worrying statement, really, because we know what Sambisa has been in this country. But you also say clearly that we saw this coming, as it were. They had been kidnapping from time to time, getting ransom, hiding in those forests, Kanam, Wase, and all of that. So clearly, we saw this coming. In fact, I remember on that Sunday, there was some tension in the Jos metropolis where, they had to cordon off some roads leading to the correctional centers and some other places. So, I mean, it would seem all the indications were there, and that might be contrary to what the commissioner said about we not exactly seeing this coming. But I'd like you to talk to us about your people, because I mean, for every number, for every casualty, for every figure, there are people behind those figures. There are families mourning. What do you know about the death toll, number of people kidnapped so far? I know you're trying to pick things up after this, but what can you tell us? The death toll, the number of people missing, and how the people are picking up things now?
Well, for now, I was present on Monday morning where we do this mass burying where we buried 106 already killed, and they're still picking more dead bodies in the farmlands, because when they meet in the farm, they will shoot you and proceed to another farm, and they are still picking more people. Even to today, they are still finding dead bodies in the farmlands. And in the hospital, we have more than 60 people hospitalized. Someone in Jude right now having bullet in his head. Maybe they will do the operation either today or tomorrow to remove the bullet, broken limb, broken hand. So there are lots of issues, and displaced people uncountable. They are gathered in Ganga Primary School, some family, friends. There are lots of more than 4,000 or 5,000 people as IDPs in their own homeland, on their own soil. So I think the issue is so much devastating. Until when you go there, you almost shake your head. When I was in, it happened on Monday, on Sunday. On Monday, we moved in there to help them gather the dead bodies and bury. We were able to bury, as I said, we buried 106 that day. But before we leave in, they were still getting more corpses in the farmland. So these people require at least protection. First and foremost, we need to have security outposts, either army or MOPOL. Because if we don't protect that forest, if you don't stop who is coming out from that forest, who is going into that forest, definitely there will be more attacks in the future. So if we can get that, and what our people need now is support, food items. We have mobilized and sent them some food items, but it's definitely not enough, but it is a continuous. We've gotten support from individuals, senators, some politicians have also coming with their own support, and we need more support from well-meaning Nigerians for life going forward.
Well, Mr. Garga, there is a number of things that you have said, only it continues to raise certain questions on my mind as to how involved the people are or may be in this issue. You heard the commissioner say the other time that security is everybody's business and that the members of the communities also have their roles to play in this. Would you say that there is a way in which the people in the communities can play a role in seeing something, saying something, getting information to the authorities to forestall this kind of situation we have on our hands?
Yeah, we have a workable vigilante group that works day and night. The unfortunate thing that perhaps is our major problem is we have informants among us that are talking with these criminals. Because the day they storm our villages, our vigilantes are mobilized to go into one side of the forest because it's a big expanse of land, over 42 square kilometers. So I'm sure somebody must have highlighted them. Look, The vigilantes have gone this side, so you can come this side. But this is just suspicion, this is mere allegation. Nobody can, maybe security can now investigate to know the truth. How did they come in? Because the vigilantes have been engaging them. When they are coming, they'll chase them. When they know that they're around, they won't come. But this time around, when they have gone to other directions, then these attackers came from another direction. It then means there are informants that are telling them, don't do this. By the time we are sending security to that place, the security will go, they will not see anybody. As soon as they are leaving, they will still be coming to either kidnap, request for ransom. So security is everybody's business, and our vigilantes are doing a very good job.
All right, let me take this back to Mr. Manjang. It's a mixed bag, really, where you hear the chairman talking about, even villagers and residents, some of them complicit in these attacks. And he talked about them having instances of kidnapping before now, kidnapping for ransom, maybe issues of land as well, trying to get control of the forest reserve. Surely the state government is aware of that?
Yeah, well, if the state government was aware that there are people in that forest, it would have taken measures to flush them. I remember there was a time in Wase that some people came in the life of the past administration that people came in 14 vehicles to Wase, and the government then was able to appeal to them, and they left the forest. If government knows that bad characters like that are occupying a forest, it would have taken proactive measure to remove them. It will not wait until the situation has escalated to this level to be able to now be crying wolf. What I would say, to add to what Mr. Garga has said, is this goes beyond the issue of even vigilantes. There's a lot that needs to be done. If somebody carries bow and arrow to face somebody with an AK-47, then you know that it takes the grace of God for the man with bow and arrow to surmount, to defeat the man with AK-47. What that means in essence is that, like I said, the laws have to be changed, more powers have to be given for even the vigilantes to be able to equip themselves, because you cannot go with sticks and bows and arrows. But even despite that, they have done tremendously well. And I can assure you, without the local communities, these villages would have been extinct, wiped off by now.
Why we're seeing these attacks, and it's not just in Kanam or Wase, across other local government in Plateau, still hangs in the air. And I'd like you to take a look at this. I mean, we chronicled some of the attacks we have seen in the state over the past few months, starting from January. And we start from January the 9th, where the wife of a deputy chief of staff was abducted in Little Rayfield, that's in Jos Metropolis. She was eventually rescued. So that was on January the 9th. Then January the 11th, 18 people were killed, 6 injured in Ansha village in Bassa local government area, yet another local government area. Then January 12th, 3 students were abducted in Bam village in Barkin Ladi local government area. They were eventually rescued. And fast forward to January the 16th, where the traditional ruler of Wang was kidnapped in Jos South local government area. He was rescued, thankfully. On January 22nd, 4 people were killed, 1 injured in Dong in Jos North local government area. Then February the 25th, traditional ruler of Maraba Pushit kidnapped in Mango local government area. So I've chronicled at least 4 local government areas where we've seen attacks. In April 12th, 10 people were killed and 19 injured in Chando Zerechi. It was during a traditional rites ceremony in Bassa local government area. Then April 9th, just 7 days after, the commissioner's wife and daughter was kidnapped in Gindiri in Mango local government area. It's still unclear what the situation of that kidnap is. And of course, this one that we're talking about, 106 people killed, 10 villages across Kanam and Wase local government areas. A lot of questions jump out, but why are we seeing these attacks across local government areas in Plateau State? Have you been able to find an answer to that question?
Yeah, well, the answer is not far-fetched. The answer is multifaceted. The reasons are multifaceted. One is being done by criminal elements. All of them are criminals, so to say. One is being done by people that would want to enhance their economy by forcefully taking away people, kidnapping people, and then asking for ransom. Another phase of it is by warring communities in the protection of their land, while some people want to grab land. And this one that happened in Kanam is neither of the two, even though, as the chairman has said, there are spades of kidnappings in the past, but the Kanam one is, the dimension is different because if you diagnose it, you would see that these are people that came in their droves, in numbers, in motorcycles, to come and kill people. But for those that are kidnapping, some people get killed. It's for economic reasons. They want to get money, and some of it too in Bassa particularly is about warring communities. And as I talk to you today, His Excellency the Governor is going to Bassa to go and dialogue with the Fulani community there and the Irigwe community there. I will be going there in the afternoon. So if you look at it, you would see that everybody has his reasons for doing the things that they're doing, even though we will not okay what is happening, because it takes a toll, as like I have said, on the people. Like I've said, even if an animal is killed, we are not happy as a government. Even if it is one person that is killed, we are saddened by the situation. Not to even talk of 4, 3, 19, and on to over 100. It is unacceptable, and it is a matter that has to be taken by everybody. And let me tell you, we are not happy about the situation that is happening, but it shows that the country is under siege. And if the country is under siege, a serious measure has to be taken by our brothers at the National Assembly to arrest the situation. Yesterday, I watched the proceedings of both houses, and I saw how our members spoke with vehemence, spoke against this, and we think that from what is happening, action is going to be taken by both the legislature and by both the executive at the highest level, by the president himself.
Right. So I'll come to that point you just raised, because it's puzzling, really. The governors seem to want state police or want more control. And I imagine that the representatives in the National Assembly, of course, align with the governors as well. But nothing is being done, and you keep saying the lawmakers should do that. But just, I wanted you to clear something that was talked about, the kidnap of the commissioner's wife and daughter on April the 9th. Not much has been heard about that. Do you have an update on that kidnapping and what is being done?
Yes, the update that we have now is that the contact has been established with the wife and the daughter, and ransom has been sought for, has been asked, and but the security is closing in, taking action, making sure that the people taken captive are released. Like in the past, some of the people were released without ransom being paid. Like the wife of the deputy chief of staff was released, a doctor was released, the Dagom Ray of one was released, and without ransom being paid. And so the security is up and doing to make sure that the situation the wife and the daughter of our colleague are released. and that the other people, this kind of occurrences will be reduced to the barest minimum. It's an unfortunate development that is the update that we have about the wife and daughter of our colleague.
Definitely wish for the very best and good news from that kidnapping. Back to the point I raised about the governors say they want more control. Some say state police, some others say that they want at least to be able to be the security, the chief security officers, not just on paper, but in reality. And you have said the lawmakers should do something. I imagine the lawmakers also align with you. So really, is it not double talk? We say we want one thing, but we're not doing what we say we want. Where exactly is the problem here?
Yeah, well, you know, there's nobody that's immune to these criminals. Not the governor is not immune. I am not immune. The lawmakers are not immune, and I can tell you that he who feels it knows it. The onus now rests upon the lawmakers. When you invite them to channels, you ask them why they are tarrying. They may be able to tell you reasons for why they don't want to give the governors the teeth to back. We would be more than happy if we hear from them. But from what is happening from the proceedings of both chambers yesterday, I can assure you that something positive is going to come.
Pardon me, Mr. Manjang, has the governor spoken with lawmakers from your state, House of Reps and the Senate, saying this is the position, this is what we need to be done, so please go to the floor and table this? Has he done that?
Yeah, times without number. When the Constitution was being amended, we were there. The present chairman of the party, of our great party, APC, was the chairman of the Constitution Review Committee. He came to Plateau State, and people submitted memoranda. The state government had a position, and that position was clearly known. Part of what we are saying, that governors should be given the teeth to back in terms of security, was part of the submission of Plateau State government. Okay.
Well, Mr. Garga, this is the situation we find ourselves now, and it is definitely worrisome, something very, very troubling, and a number of people are still trying to figure, you know, the whole thing out. They are not just figures, they are people that we are talking about here. So in terms of balancing out, in terms of helping the people to get stability, what are the next steps that you will be proposing to anyone who is listening right now?
Well, first and foremost, we need to look at after the people that are in hospital, so that we can recover them going forward. You know, also, the people that are also alive need to survive in terms of food, clothing, and their burn houses. You need to have shelter where you remain, particularly now that professional rainy season, and we need security so that at least they'll be able to go to their farm and get the necessary means of livelihood. If all these things is getting, we support for food, clothing, medical treatment, security for them to go to their farms, I think it will go a long way for them to be comfortable and live. Though it will take a long time before such horrendous experience will be out of their minds. I hope that the government are trying their best to also request that well-meaning individuals to also come to the aid of our people. And we hope to get that as soon as possible.
We can only hope and pray that we don't have this kind of news from Kanam or anywhere else in the state again, right. And hoping that everything is being done to ensure that we have security all across the length and breadth, nooks and crannies of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Dayabu Garga, Chairman, Kanam Local Government Area of Plateau State, and former Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, as well as Dan Manyang, who is Commissioner for Information and Communication in Plateau State. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and your perspectives this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. So we take another perspective to the same issue when we return from this break. Please stay with us.
Policing infrastructure is currently being given attention to strengthen our kinetic operations against mindless persons or groups or state-threatening violence against Nigerians. The recent deployment of drones by Nigeria Police Force for surveillance of vulnerable locations and deployment of additional explosive ordnance devices to detect bombs and other covert measures will help in curtailing violent crimes. The police is also re-strategizing in its kinetic and non-kinetic operations with a view to crushing all forms of security challenges in the country. Security checks have confirmed that most of these banditry activities are perpetrated by people living in contiguous communities using unpatriotic persons in these same communities as agents that aid them in intelligence in carrying out their nefarious activities. I therefore call on all community leaders to appeal to all peace-loving members of their communities to cooperate with security agencies in their efforts at fighting bandits and other senseless elements threatening peace and security in our dear nation.
Well, we're expanding the conversation right now. We're speaking with a man who knows not just the terrain of Plateau State, but the security terrain of the nation at large, having served in the military at various levels. We're joined this morning by Brigadier General Jonathan Temlong, a former Army officer, a fellow War College, Abuja, and fellow Institute of Management consultant. He joins us live from Jos in Plateau State. It's great to have you on the program, sir. I'd like to begin from the conversation we had earlier. And, you know, we chronicled the attacks we've seen in this year. Clearly not all of them, but some of the major ones we have seen. And we spoke to the commissioner, spoke to the chairman, tried to get a sense of why we're having these attacks. They gave some explanations. But so if we understand what we have on our hands, now talking Plateau State first, before we talk Nigeria, why is it hard to, as they say, maybe nip this in the bud or end this altogether?
Well, thank you very much. Let me correct. I'm not a former Army officer. I'm a retired Army officer. Thank you very much for having me. Now, you see, the problem with security in Nigeria, the Plateau State and Nigeria as a whole is that there is a failure of the criminal justice system because like Dan Manjang, the Honorable Commissioner, alluded to, is a lot of criminalities that is going on. You find out that many of the criminals are moving about without being punished. Even right within the communities, if you listen to the clip from the Minister of Police Affairs, Dingadi, and then even the Garda, there are informants in the communities, the bad people. Now, what happens when you inform? They get rewards for information. And they're living lives above their means, and nobody is talking about that. I think it's the whole thing. There are problems that deals with governance issues, lack of capacity and capabilities to deal with some of these problems, the failure of the criminal justice system, and the lack of will by the citizens themselves to rise up against criminals, because these people live with us. And there's a lack of capacity too by the citizens to be able to detect and know those who are criminals with their amongst them and do the needful with them. So there is a whole need that the social justice and the normative social platforms that used to be in the society has collapsed. And so that's why you found out that the chairman was saying that people could go and stay in Bangalore. There are supposed to be some administrative structures in that village. And you have a horde of people who are not there. They come in and stay there, and then they start perpetrating evil against the people, and nobody talks about it. How do you report it? And these people do not even live off the land. They eat, they buy food from the communities. In fact, sometimes they even buy cooked food from the communities. How can you expect about 100 people coming to attack a community, and then they say they are in the forest? Do they farm in the forest? Do they cook in the forest? If they do they produce the palm oil, the salt, all the ingredients they need for the food? No. They come to the communities, and these are strange fellows. They don't live within the communities. Most of these villages, you know everybody that is there. Most of them are even relatives. Unfortunately, this thing is happening even in Garga, where the local government chairman comes from. My heart reaches out to them. I sympathize with them. My condolence goes to them. And I pray that those who are in the hospital should be well soon, get well quick. And then something should be done to rehabilitate those who have been internally displaced. But I think there are serious problems that have to look at. Capacity, governance problems, criminal justice system, and then the social order. The social order has collapsed. So we must rebuild the Nigerian social order. We must build the capacity of those we elect to lead us, because it is assumed that the moment you are elected as a chairman or as a governor and the rest, you have an inherent capacity to start doing what it is. It cannot be business as usual, because governance has changed. The criminals have changed. We are living in an e-world, and yet we are just doing things as if it's normal. The governance is still the same. It cannot. We say security is everybody's business, but then you must build the capacity of the citizens to be able to detect certain indicators that are of security importance to them. And who do they give to?
And that's the point. That's the point I'd like to take up next with you. That's the point I'd like to take up next. I recall in the build-up to the 2019 election, which you contested for as governor of the state. During the debate, you spoke about security, getting citizens involved in security. And I think this is something that has been spoken about. What was your thoughts? What was your thinking then? How did you plan to approach this at that time?
Thank you very much, because I was one of the architects of the Operation Rainbow that they are talking about. What Rainbow, the concept was Rainbow was supposed to be a rapid, a system of acquisition of intelligence and a rapid response mechanism. Okay, but for you to do that, you must build the capacity of the citizens to know that, look, I'll give you an example. In those days when we were young, children were exploring the environment. And when they are exploring that environment, when they see footmarks of an animal that is strange in that environment, they call their elders immediately and say, look, we have seen something strange. And then they will bring the hunters and the old men, and they will say, if it is a dangerous animal like a lion or leopard, all of the children will be restricted back home. They will go hunting for that animal until they kill it. If not, we're all restricted home. So in the same vein, if strange people start coming to your environment, you must build the capacity of the citizens to know that, look, these people who are coming, what are they coming for? Where are they going? What is their mission? So you start tackling them, asking them questions and building intelligence about them. And once you do that, you'll be able to detect whether they are there for good or for bad. I give you an example. I used it in Adamawa State. And even when I spoke on TV here in Plateau, it was used, and they were able to apprehend some criminals. For example, the woman who sells akara and cocoa in the morning, she knows her customers. She lives in a certain area. Suddenly, a strange person comes and buys the whole of her ware for that whole day, early in the morning. And that person does not live within that community. and there is no naming ceremony in that community, nor are they going for any communal farm or work in that community, the woman is happy. She goes back quickly to prepare the same akara for her normal, regular customers. She has made money, but there is a security problem to that, because where are they taking that money to? Why are they taking those akara to? So unless you do that, people will start tracking, and once they track, they find out that there was a camp, or there are camps, and that will lead to security actions being taken against them. So unless the citizens themselves, it's just like first aid. If you do not know how to stop bleeding or to provide for yourself, before you call the medics, they'll come and carry dead body. So also if the citizens do not know the basic security drills to carry out, what happens is that the dead bodies will be carried like this. There are even supposed to be a dispersion drill. If you attack a community like that, why were they not dispersed? Why were they holding into one direction that they were hitting them? These are things that you must teach the community.
Yeah, we've also had cases, still talking about the communities that you have talked about. In a number of communities all over the place where we have had security breaches such as this, there are those who have said, like you, that we need to educate the citizens, members of the communities, to do the needful and all of that. But we've also heard stories of a situation where the members of the communities report to the authorities and they get reprisal attacks on them. Because, so the question then will be, if these people do what we are expecting them to do, and that is report to the authorities and do the needful, just as you are suggesting, they will be asking questions around their own protection when the security operatives have taken their leave.
Well, you see, there are two things, two sides of the coin. I said, even if you report and you get reprisal attacks, there might be most within you who would have reported that these people have reported. And so in the community itself, you teach them how to look over their shoulders.
But then
there are bad citizens in every bad malls, in every community.
Yes,
so
General,
definitely if you...
Well, General, my apologies for breaking in. You've said this particular thing you've said now over and over again about there being moles in the communities, and the chairman of the local government also said the same thing and you referenced it. But then the question would be, how do we fish out these elements, these moles among the people in a way that is safe for the people?
It's very easy because we know everybody in the community. It's very, very easy. We know everybody in the community. When you start living a lifestyle that is above you, when you start moving suspiciously, when your movements are not known, and when you come listen to people in a way and then you disappear, in the morning you disappear, or in the night you disappear, you come back in the morning, or when there are attacks going to be held in that place, you are out of the place. It's very, very simple. You know them and you deal with them. In fact, the communities have their own ways of disciplining people. We're not saying they take laws into their hands, but they have a way of disciplining people. It has worked. It worked in areas that I know. I know when we had these problems in the southern zone of Plateau State, it worked because all those who are morals in those communities were rounded up. And once you round them up, there was lack of intelligence going to the people going to attack, because it used to be that they will fall if that is criminality. The Fulani chaps that are around was a side and the rest will form those chaps in the Tarok area, that there are cows, new cows in their areas, and how the people are coming. And then people, these criminals in the Tarok land will cross over to the Wase side and go and rustle those cattle. Come and sell them and share the profits. The brand now comes that the Tarok boys have rustled, not knowing that they have the informants within the Fulani areas. And so when the Tarok people stood on their ground and said, no rustled cattle crosses into Tarok land again, that ended this whole situation. They didn't have anyone to go with them again. And they picked those who are rustling. So it's very simple to do all those things, because they're the people in the community, you know the bad people. They know thieves in the community. They know those who are bad. They know those who are all in the community. It's very simple. So you can deal with those situations.
Is there
and
then
there's no
gap?
security person operating that will want to be reported to his higher authority
for leaking information about a criminal.
Okay.
The people can actually make, because if you go onto the court of public opinion or you pass your information directly to government that you suspect this security operative for giving out information that you reported criminals to them and they are doing it, they will be dealt with. Nobody wants that. Nobody in uniform will ever want to be reported for doing something that is anti-government.
All right, General, is there then a gap between the government, the security operatives, and the people in the communities towards getting to this level that you're talking about? Because it's not just in one local government or community that these things are happening. We've had stories from, in Kaduna, of course, in Plateau State, in Benue, in Katsina, virtually everywhere. And one is wondering if there is such a gap that is making this intelligence strategy that you're talking about difficult for us to get to. Is there a gap that we need to fill?
There is definitely a gap. There is definitely a gap. I talked to you about capacity and capability problems. I talked to you about the deficit in the capacity of the people, that they need to build their capacity and the rest. There's definitely a gap. Even the governance issues I talked to you about. A local government chairman, yes, he will tell you that he's a chief security officer. Yes, he is. He has got the police, he has got the GSS and all the other security apparatus there, and he's supposed to be holding security meetings with them. He's supposed to be tasking them. He says that there are people in the forests. He's supposed to task them. So look, we understand that there are people in this forest. We want an intelligence about them. Who are who? Where are they from? What is their strength? What are their capabilities, their weapons, and the rest? And if the DSS there can tell him that, look, we don't have that capacity, okay, we will need resources. If the resources are within his, he gives it. When people talk about command, you are not the command of troops, even the commander-in-chief doesn't command the troops physically. The Constitution says he should delegate, and that's why he has delegated to a commission officer. You do not even know how to do governance. You want to go and command troops. Before you even command troops, you have gone through the academy, gone through courses and the rest, until you prove that you are worth commanding certain body of troops, you are given. So what do you want to command troops for? What you want is that you give directives based on the intelligence and the totality of information that has come to you, and you sit down with those advisors at your security meeting, and you take decisions. And those decisions that you take, you convey the same to the state. We have an STF in the Plateau. I don't know by how much communication has been going on between the local government chairman to feed them with some of this information, some of this that, look, there are people in this forest who want these sort of things. If the STF do not have that capacity, they've sent to Abuja, and Abuja send ISR on top of those areas to start finding out this thing, and they give them additional assets. So I think there is a lot of a gap. The police minister was talking that police have drones for intelligence, information gathering. What stops scrambling those drones to those areas longest time? It means then there is a gap. It's a governance issue. There's a capacity problem. People are not using those places, those security agencies deployed to them properly because they don't even know how to use them. If they know how to use them, then there's a problem. If they are using them, they are not, then there's a problem. Report that this DPO is not doing what it's supposed to do, is not having the capacity. And no DPO wants to be reported for failure to do what it's supposed to do, or a DSS operative, or even a military commander in an area for that matter. So I think we need to build up our capacity. In fact, even in fact, we start with those in governance now. We start with the governors, the cabinets, the local governments and their cabinets, traditional rulers and their cabinets. We must build this capacity because when you see what is going on, it leaves you and say, look, why are we in this state? There are governance issues, capacity problems. It's things that can be done. It's not rocket science.
So you have you have essentially broken this down into at least 5 issues: capacity, governance, the criminal justice system, social order, and of course, including the citizens in this fight. But I'll still stay with that governance and capacity angle. And I'll tie this to what we saw at the floor of the House of Reps yesterday, the calling for the sack of those who have been put in charge of security. Do you agree with that call? Do you think that will make much difference?
I've always had my problem with the people in the legislature. They say they are with the people. They say they are representing us. How many of us do they consult? You are talking about security problems. How many of us that are available here do they consult about security? Is it just going to shout on the floor that you think that's what the solution is going to be? What do you sack those service chiefs? You say sack them part. Then you sack, in fact, somebody was saying that they should sack the military or something. What? Say they will close the assembly. Let them close themselves and go home. If they don't even know what they're supposed to do there. Because they are supposed to be our representatives. They are supposed to build their own capacity and talk to some of us on what to do. I tell you, in America, what brought about the changes in the security and the management of defense was a bill that was sponsored by Goldwater and Nicole. They were from the members of the the Congress. And it is that bill that transformed the management of defense in the US till today. They sit down there as I say, SAC. What is SAC? They have powers of oversight over the armed forces. Have they actually known the problems that is happening in the armed forces? Have they gone around to find out, even understand the problems? Why are people going to attack a village and just kill people, burn down the places without even looting? What are the problems? What do they want to achieve? You have to understand the problem. And if you have not even understood the problems, they don't even sit down to build their own capacity. This capacity problem is across the board. It's just not going to shout on the floor of the house and talking things that cannot even be done. You say you appropriated money. How much is a round of 7.62 millimeter? How much is one round?
But General, you would understand. You would understand the frustration of the representatives in the National Assembly, excuse me, whether it be the Senate or the House of Representatives, because as you very well know, many of the people in there are not experts at these things. So in terms of their own capacity, what would you say is lacking? And what would you say needs to be done at that level? Because the issues we're having with insecurity, it goes all over the nation. It's not restricted to one place. The front pages of the dailies every day are replete with all kinds of stories from all parts of the country, and these representatives are from the different parts of the nation. So in terms of their own capacity to help forestall this recurrent issue of insecurity, what would you say is lacking?
Look, everything is lacking about their capacity. I'll give you an example. When the American armed forces came back from Vietnam, there were problems of rivalry, problems that, look, why were there problems in the armed forces? These representatives, Goldwater and Nicole, sat down and discussed with some of the veterans, and they got to know the problems, and it is there they introduced legislation. You don't just go about saying, sack this, for what? The people are doing their best, and there are limitations. They are facing a lot of limitations. You're not even appreciating what they are doing. You are demoralizing the troops, Look, the whole thing is that there is no empathy, even for the troops. For the security people that are being killed day in, day out, they don't seem to be showing any empathy. So
it's another issue that came.
These people are coming from this thing. They must build their capacity and know that, look, they are there to make laws for the good governance of this country.
Okay. Well, one other thing that has been proposed, my apologies, General, because we are running out of time now. One of the issues that has been proposed over and over again, and again yesterday was mentioned, I think, on the floor of the House, is the issue of mercenaries. And this issue has come up so many times. It's come up last year, came up sometime before, referencing the fact that the previous government had even attempted that before, and they were gaining some ground. So in terms of engagement of mercenaries, as has been proposed on the floor of the House of Representatives, what are your thoughts?
I think it is a failure of them even to know what they're supposed to do. Why should they talk about mercenaries? Nigeria fought a civil war from 1967 to 1970. The strength of the Nigerian army then was about 6,000 men. By the time we ended the war, in 30 months, we had about 240,000. World War II veterans who fought and discharged in 1945 were brought back in 1967. They were the ones they used to call Sunzo. They were the ones who turned the tide, because a lot of them had fought in the Burma jungles. And when they went to the east, they were at home with jungles. If you ask the Igbos who are on the other side, and even ask when Major Chukwuma Nzeku was killed, it was the arrival of the Sunzo, because they now took cover. They never fired until it was fire for effect. It was point blank that they killed at that time. We have so many people. Look, the police today, they are struggling to recruit 10,000 people of last year, 2021. And how many policemen have died and discharged and have been incapacitated since last year? They are trying to just get 10,000 people, which were supposed to have been recruited last year and trained last year, fighting between the Police Service Commission and the police. They are still working on it to recruit 22. What we call time and space doesn't wait for you. So we need more numbers, but one good thing that even now is that there are technology has offered you force multipliers that you can use as quickly as possible instead of men. But while you are trained more boots to put on ground, there is technology that you can deploy as a force multiplier. We must make use of technology. And these are things that I thought members should be thinking about. Say, look, we need to deploy certain things and insist on some of those technologies to be deployed. Look, there are hotspots on the Kaduna-Zaria road. Abuja-Kaduna road. Does it mean that you cannot use technology to track all those criminals in that area? You can do it. In fact, there are places that they do. Even with cameras, you can even mount cameras, let alone drones, that you can even use in those areas.
Well, General,
we know those areas.
Clearly we have a lot of work on our hands as a people, as representatives, as government, you know, those put in charge of security. But we'll have to thank you so much for your insights and contribution on the program this morning. We've been speaking with Brigadier General Jonathan Temlong, who is a retired Army officer. By the way, is the first commander, multinational joint task force in the Northeast. Thank you for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I didn't quite get that, but we'll go on a break now, and when we return, we'll focus on the question of leadership recruitment. What is your role as a Nigerian? What do we need to do? What are those hurdles we need to cross before 2023? That's in a moment. Stay with us.
Previous weeks and months has seen the Independent National Electoral Commission meeting key stakeholders as the nation prepares for the 2023 general elections, as well as the conduct of by-elections and governorship elections in Ekiti and Osun states. This time, the INEC chairman is meeting with reporters to give them an update on the continuous voter registration exercise. For the period under review, registrations came to about 2,523,458. A table shared by the INEC chairman shows how states performed with invalid registration coming to 1,126,359.
Since the resumption of the CBR exercise, millions of eligible citizens have availed themselves of this online pre-registration facility, as well as the physical registration in our state and local government offices nationwide to register, update their records, or transfer their registration to other places where they wish to vote in future elections.
While the number of invalid registration, according to the INEC chairman, is no good news to the commission, he threatens to sanction staff and registrants who aid re-registration processes.
This development is worrisome because of the time and resources expended in handling these cases. Even more disturbing are the strong indications that some of our staff may be complicit in facilitating these infractions, notwithstanding the stern warnings.
And then he speaks on preparations for the forthcoming 2023 elections, especially in the face of security challenges in the country.
The truth is that someone has to secure the environment for INEC to conduct elections. And we have been speaking to the security agencies. But we are doing our own bit based on our constitutional and legal mandate to conduct elections.
Done with the speeches, the chairman, in the company of other commissioners, unveils the distribution of voters' cards. The commission is hoping that all political parties are able to conduct all primaries within the 52 days provision by the Electoral Act.
Thank you very much.
Recruiting the next set of leaders demands the responsibility of every single one of us. And we have a recruitment agency, which is INEC, and of course, every one of us have our own roles in that. Paul James joins us this morning. He's Program Manager Elections at Yaga Africa. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. James. Well, most certainly, this is something that everyone has been concerned about for quite a while, dusting up the voter register. And INEC chairman, as you heard there, is raising serious flags concerning double registration being one of those contributing factors that may make or mar the elections. First of all, what are your initial thoughts on that?
Thank you for the invitation and good morning, Nigerians. I think for me, first off, is also looking at the statistics of invalid registration. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm not looking at the negative, but the positive, to say I see commitment on the part of Nigerians to be part of this process. Whatever may have happened along the line, INEC was very clear about the suspicion for complicity on the part of its own staff. But then look at the statistics across the states and also the trend. You will realize that most of these concerns are from the southern geopolitical zone. What does that tell us? I think for me it's also to show the commitment on the part of people from that part of the country to get involved in the process. We should also not forget about how this entire process started from June the 28th. In the initial stages of the process, there were also challenges with people accessing INEC offices, because then I think it was mandatory that people have to pass through the online registration. I'm saying that because we had observers on ground at Yaga Africa that we deployed to observe the severe exercise, and the first few weeks of the exercise, they raised concerns about INEC officials insisting that people will have to complete the online pre-registration before they engage the physical registration. Now think about the technology challenges around doing this thing. I also think about people that are not also technology savvy to really apply themselves to going through the online pre-registration phase. And also when this process started as well, even for the INEC equipment that were used for the exercise, the INEC voter enrollment devices, we saw challenges with the delays in processing voters, and in some places, INEC officials telling you that they don't have access to the device because, of course, the codes have changed over time and all of that. But even as the process started, I mean, we saw also commitment on the part of many Nigerians we had reports in the first 6 months of the exercise of Nigerians both engaging in voter education exercise and also going out to these INEC local government registration centers to get registered. What came to mind yesterday when I saw the figures from INEC was the fact that I thought we should have passed those figures that INEC actually published yesterday. I thought we should have been hitting like 5 to 10 million by now because of the sort of commitment I saw on the part of Nigeria, the voter registration effort also I see on the part of INEC officials. But here we are. Now compare this also to the previous exercise. You go back to the 2010 exercise, which was done, I think, under a period of 6 weeks or thereabout, started about December of 2010 and ended towards the end of January or February, early February of 2011. And over 73 million Nigerians were registered in that exercise. Well, after the cleanup, INEC said the cleanup, and I mean, they deleted about 4 million Nigerians. For the 2019 election as well, if you go back to the statistics, INEC registered 50 million Nigerians between April of 2017 and August of 2018. So it begs the question, what is really happening? Do we need system audit, or is it that INEC has finished? We have had a lot of Nigerians have registered for this exercise now, that between when the process started in June and in April of this month, INEC is telling us that only about roughly about 2.5 million Nigerians have registered, and 1 million of those were invalid registrations. So those were the questions that were agitating my mind yesterday. And then if it is about doing system audit, I know they are beginning to talk about their staff, I mean the concerns around the staff and encouraging double registration. But if you also need to do system audit or go back to the traditional way of everybody coming to the INEC registration centers to get registered, I think the time is now to begin to think about going through those, going back to apply those processes.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about, issues boggling our minds. And for me, this morning is the fact that, yes, we had 84 million registered voters in the build-up to the 2019 elections. INEC seems to be projecting that we'll have maybe 90 million for the 2023 election. So that's a difference of, 6 million or thereabouts. But on election day proper, what you find is totally different. Yes, we say that 50% of our population, we have young people as 50%. So at least we should have 100 million young people registered already. But on election day, as it were, you realize that those coming out to really vote for our leaders across levels are less than 40 million. And that's a question that bugs my mind. So yes, while there needs to be a lot of work in terms of registering people, what is the point of all that registration of 84 million, 90 million, when only about 40 million, less than 40 million actually come out to vote?
Well, I think for me, first, let's not limit participation to just election day. Participation begins from when the voter even approach INEC officials for voter registration. And so the engagement also continues beyond election, that is holding elected leaders to account. But going back also to the figures from 2019, 84 million, did we really have 84 million registered voters? And we shouldn't also forget that in that election, according to INEC figures, 72 million collected PVC. So that election was based off the 72 million Nigerians that had collected that PVC. Now, even for the election, we saw on election day that the figure that INEC had released, the 84 million Nigerians, if you go back and put together the number of registered voters from all of the polling stations, you realize that there was a difference of about 1.6 million. The total figure was about 82 million. I knew that because we deployed observers and were able to get those voter registration figures. But then, what does that tell us? Do we also need to begin to talk about the audit of the voters register, so that I will know in specific the actual number of voters that we have in our register? I'm happy that INEC is now talking about automated biometric identification system where they can use that to clean up the register. We used to have the office in the past. Maybe we need to start to have those conversations. But then beyond that, talking about citizen participation, it is because we have made the mistake over time of looking at participation to just limiting participation to election day. And most of these voters, they come on election and begin to tell you you that they don't like the option that the option that they had. Most times we'll be hearing this thing that I don't like to hear about the options between the devil and the deep blue sea, but we keep forgetting that participation is broad. It even begins from people engaging the political parties. Party primaries happen at that level. Those who are that's the process where leaders emerge, and then they get presented for people to vote for in the national election. So most times we limit that to just election. They're not looking at those other options that people have to engage. If the options for the parties that we have, if people don't love those options, people can think of also starting up their own parties or their own movement.
Yes, on that same issue, when you say the citizens should engage the parties, question would be how. There are members of the societies of the various communities in each of these political parties, and they come up with these options anyway. So if you say that the people are left, you know, with the option between the devil and the deep blue sea, it's either they choose one or they choose one, because at the end of the day, whether you vote or you don't vote, you have voted. So in terms of engaging the political parties, is there a role for the citizens, and how is that role to be implemented?
First, the constitution of the country also allows people that have met the constitutional requirement to set up their own parties. Sadly, we don't have options for independent candidates in our constitution. If people are not happy with the options that we currently have, people can start their own movement, they can start their own political parties. Now, as for engaging the political parties, parties come to the people with, most times, their manifestos, which later translate into the policy for the party when they get elected in government. Challenge the people based on those sort of options that they are presented, or otherwise also, even for the options that the parties have, challenge them on that, on that regard. Come on, we've now passed all the issues that parties used to present us with. We are going to fix road and all of that, to discussing ideas. What concrete steps do parties have to address the challenges that confront us all as a people? Those are some of the hard questions that I expect to see people engage in political parties.
Do you see a situation, Mr. James, where, just 1 second, Mr. James, if you can hear me, do you see a situation where the people can go back to that political party and say, we don't like your option? Not before voting day. Not before voting day. Yes, that's the thing. Not before voting day. After their primaries, do you see a situation where the parties are going to, the citizens will say, we don't like this option. We don't want you to fill this option in the general election. We want you to repeat your primaries or change this option for us. Do you see that happening?
Well, I don't think some of these processes will be reversed if they had been concluded, especially because we are working within a timeline. We are working within a window for the election. For instance, INEC had released a timeline for the party primaries. It begins from this April to the 3rd of June. Every other party should have concluded its processes by then. If anybody would want to engage the parties,
would be engaging the political parties. Mr. James, if you can hear me, on what basis then, of what use is engaging the political parties if their choice cannot be changed after the primaries, if the people say they don't like that option? It's still between the devil and the deep blue sea, just as you said.
But we are all saying the same thing. The point is, the engagement starts today. We don't limit engagement to the election day. Different options are coming up now. Different people are indicating their interest to participate in the politics of 2023. Are people paying attention to that? A lot of time we limit this engagement to social media. Some of them are beginning to go down to the people to meet with the people. Of course, I feel those are the level that this engagement will need to start happening. And then before the party primaries, if the options are there for people to also join these political parties, since that is where this election are going to happen, or if it is through the delegate system that is also going to happen, people will need to also start speaking to this delegate to ensure that the option that they feel is best for them, the option that they think by extension is best for the country, are the option that the parties are putting forward for the election.
Well, let's wind down now. Okay, so I'm a Nigerian watching this program, and I realize, wait a minute, we're just about 10 months to the 2023 elections, and I've not been doing quite a lot in actively participating. Let's end with this action point. Let's hit the nail on the head. What do I need to do when I'm done with this show to actively engage?
I think we are doing it already. We just need to increase the tempo of what we are doing. It's just simple. Voter education is not rocket science. Voter information is not rocket science. As simple as telling people the dates for the election, for instance, or where to even go and vote, or the process of collecting their permanent voters card, for instance. We have helped the process. We have done voter education. Yesterday, INEC told us that they have released, or they are over...
Okay, okay, I think you took me literally, Mr. Isaac, pardon me. You took that question literally. Pardon me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the Nigerian out there. I'm not talking about Kayode, the journalist. The Nigerian watching us who wants to engage. What do they need to do to engage?
Kayode, that there are a lot of ways to engage. One is we still have the opportunity for voter registration between now and the end of June. For the permanent voters card that are ready as well, we can also help the process by telling people where on how to go pick up the voters card. We should not also forget that INEC is also very careful about this. INEC will tell you we are doing the process is about collection of PVC and not distribution of PVC. So the voter, for instance, need to also know that they need to go and locate the INEC office to pick up their voters card. They said after the holiday period, the Easter period holiday, INEC is going to start distributing the cards that were ready for the registration that happened between the first and second quarter. And also for people that have done their own transfer. So as simple as telling people, go pick up your voters card. We have helped the process. We have helped in the participation.
Okay.
And what we have also seen
Mr. James, I'm really sorry. We'll run completely out of time. I hope this information is available on Twitter. So, from Yaga Africa, so that we can go and...
Twitter is not the only space we have for engagement.
I know, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right, well, we have to thank you very much for being a part of this conversation this morning. Paul James is Program Manager Elections, Yaga Africa. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much,
Well, Twitter is not the only space we have for engagement here on Sunrise Daily as well, but let's start off with Twitter. We have mails as well. This tweet coming in from Olagunjo Oladele on security, the conversation we had earlier, saying the problem with modern warfare is that the enemy has already planned and executed their attack while we're busy assessing and dealing with all the related bureaucracies. This has led to the degeneracy of the security forces. Emergency, doctor, plus bureaucracy is equal to higher death rates. Interesting.
Okay. Professor Imonoka says, come 2023, we must choose political leaders who will fix our insecurities and the economy and have national economic plan, policies and programs to alleviate poverty, cut corruption, and enact humane policies to unlock the economic potential of our restive youth.
Let's turn our attention to our mailbox now. And we have this one from Adenike Awe on insecurity and attacks in communities. Says, the solution to this problem is local policing. Our executive and National Assembly seem not to grasp this. They keep using the excuse that politicians will use them against opponents in their states, but the benefits of having it far outweighs the disadvantages. Too many neglected lives are being lost. The response time from the Central Police is always slow, hence the criminal elements know this. They don't get apprehended pre and after their attacks.
There's a lot more of that conversation on our Twitter handle, and of course you can rewatch this program on demand on our YouTube page, Channels Television as well, of course, our website, channelstv.com. That's the end of today's program. But stay with us here. Still a lot more on the station. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Well, keep engaging us. Send us your questions, your thoughts, and we'll definitely collate them. It's been a great time on the show this morning. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Have a beautiful and fruitful day ahead. Bye.